All right. So what you see up here are a couple of reminders of due dates, and these are critically important to understand today before you leave, because they are going to be giving you instructions for how to complete your discussion forums and your journals. So after I go through this explanation, if you need more information, you need to make sure you set up a Zoom call with me or send me an email with your questions, because this determines the kind of points that you're going to receive for completing your discussion forums and your journals. All right. So the first thing I want you to recognize is that tomorrow, right, September 2nd, your second quiz is due. All right, that's up in the orientation section, and that covers how to get good grades in this class. What is this class all about? And specifically, it's going to talk about what kinds of responses, or how do you respond or participate in discussion forums and in the journals. All right, so that's going to lay a foundation to help you to actually do these assignments well. So make sure you take that quiz. Secondly, is I want you to notice that your first discussion forum posting is due on September 9th. All right, September 9th. Now you're going to do either A or B. Don't do both. You don't get extra credit for doing both. So just do A or B. Whichever one you decide to do and you respond and you put your post in on September 9th, go back to the exact same one and do on September 13th your peer response. Don't do a peer response on a different discussion forum. Once you start one, you need to stick with it, all right? And that creates the engagement from you and your other class members, right? Now, this is where it gets a little confusing. When you are completing the first response, so the one you're doing on the 9th, you must, in order to get full credit, all the points for these assignments, you have to do what's called make connections and extensions to the reading and to the actual lectures and to any of the videos that you happen to watch, an extra credit or what have you. All right. So let's take a look at what that means. Extensions and connections. So we're going to start first with connections. All right. So if I give you a prompt for the discussion forum to talk about the building blocks that you have come to learn and understand about how you know your self-esteem, or how do you know your self-concept, etc. All right. So your response might be to talk about the social construction of reality. Oh. And the specific example we're going to do in class today, the activity. And then what you're going to do is, in parentheses after it, you're going to say lecture 9-1, right? So that's your source citation. That lets me know where you got that information from. If you are also going to talk about, or you're going to add to it, okay, that's a connection, you're going to connect your personal experiences to very specific feelings of your self-esteem, or ways that you've come about learning how people perceive you, which then creates a feeling for your self-esteem. Well, in your textbook, on page 36, it talks about self-esteem and gives a definition. So your connection is going to be the textbook. We all know what the textbook is, so you don't have to say it. And you're just going to say that it is on page 36, parentheses. All right? So every time you use a term, a theory, or a practice, okay? A term, a theory, or a practice that we use in interpersonal communication, you need to back it up with either information from a lecture or information from the textbook. I'm not looking for opinions. I may be looking for you sharing your experiences, but we're not really focusing on opinions. What we're trying to do is to, like I said, make connections between real world and what you're learning, okay? And then I also want you to make extensions. All right? So the extension can be done oftentimes in the peer response, okay? So maybe you read, maybe this was done by, let's say it was done by Walker, okay? Did a really good job. You read his discussion forum post. You thought, oh, that's awesome. That makes sense to me. And now it starts to make sense. And so you're going to respond to what Walker says by then doing an extension of what he said. So given this information, you can say yes. And all of those I'm going to extend by looking at this concept called, remember the building blocks, the building blocks that Ms. K talks about. And you're going to say again, lecture 9-1. And at that same lecture, she also talked about how it all adds up to the social comparison theory. And so you're going to just very quickly put lecture 9-1. Now you're going to bring in lectures from the entire course. It's not going to just be the most recent lecture. So this is how we build real learning, is so that it's not just a one-time take a test, regurgitate. It is, you're building, you're adding, you are synthesizing, you are actually internalizing the information so that you're able to continuously make connections and extensions of the terms, theories, and practices to real world. Because if you only look at it from the theoretical, it's boring, and it doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't help you. That's not why you're taking this class, especially if you're in automotive or aviation or massage therapy or something like that. You're taking this class because it's going to help you in your career. And you do that by making these connections and these extensions. All right. So this is how somebody's going to respond. So let's say maybe this is how Tariq responds to what Walker wrote, and he did that by adding more. All right. So very important. We are looking for a minimum of a paragraph for every response, sometimes more than one paragraph. And remember, a paragraph is at least 5 sentences with, a topic sentence, good supporting detail, 3 or 4 supporting examples, details, connections, extensions, etc., and then a conclusion. All right. So write like a college student, and that's what we're looking for. All right. Does that make sense? Now I'm going to look over here at the camera and see, are there any questions about this? All right, points will be deducted if you do not do it this way, if you do not add the point of references. Yes?
What if you can't recall a certain lecture your extension came from or your connection came from?
Guess what? It's in your sources. So have you looked at the video recordings yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
What if you remember from a video recording but not a specific one?
Okay, well, on the front of all the video recordings, there's these kinds of little indicators of the agenda. So hopefully that's going to, and that's on the thumbnail. So when you pull it up, you should see this right away. And hopefully that'll jog your memory that that's the one you want to get into. Okay. You can also send me an email. You can also say, I'm doing a discussion forum and there's something I want to talk about, and I know you talked about it in class, but I can't remember when it was. Can you refresh my memory? And I'll tell you, where to go find it or where it might be in the textbook.
Okay, thank you.
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. And, I encourage you at times to actually go back and review the videos because they will help you. All right, good. All right, I'm sorry, I'm going to point out there's a person in a red shirt in the back of the room, and I think you just came in after attendance. Can you shout out your name, please?
Walker.
Oh, good. All right, I just mentioned your name. All right, I'm going to mark you present. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. So the other reminder I want to give you is that this module is going to close on October 4th. So we've got a month. And that's going to help us to do a lot in September, even though we have 2 days off because of holiday. We are really going to go in depth into these issues and these concepts. So we're going to be doing a lot of activities, and that's where I want you to go right now. But also recognize that I did send you an extra credit opportunity. And that extra credit opportunity was sent to you in an email, and it's also posted under announcements. So read that, and if you decide that you want to earn that extra credit, and I encourage that you do, it's pretty easy, you are going to send me an email, but I have to receive it before that date or on that date, because after October 4th, I will not accept it for extra credit. All right, I might accept it for good information, but I can't give you the extra credit points. So stay current on all of the assignments. All right. Okay, so now, everybody got your piece of paper out? Or you can write it in a notebook, wherever you take notes. You need a full piece of paper. All right, and on the piece of paper, you are going to number all the way down to 20. All the way down to 20. Okay, so everybody just number the lines. All right, at the very top, I want you to write these words and eclipses. I am ... Now that represents what goes in front of all of these. All right? So I am actually going to give you exactly 2 minutes to complete that sentence for each one of these. So for instance, I might say, I am Ms. K. Or I might say something like, I am happy. Or I might say something like, I am a mom. All right, so whatever it is, and it might be a feeling, it might be an idea, it might be a role that you play in life, a position you hold, it might be, anything. No answer is wrong, okay? All of these are right answers. Now, at first it's going to be pretty easy. Probably the first 10 get down there pretty fast. These are the ones that get a little bit harder, and this is really where the richness occurs. So get to the 20, and I'm going to actually time it so that those who are going to watch this on their own will have an exact feeling for what the 2 minutes are. So any questions before I start the timer? So I am, and then you finish your sentence. I am, I am, I am. All right, and begin. All right, you can put your pencils down. Now I'm going to add another element here. I'm going to say I am done with COVID. All right. Now what we're going to do is what we as communication scholars do is we analyze words. All right? Because words are the building blocks of communication. Words are what we use, remember, to take the ideas in your head and the feelings in your heart to create or to utilize as a code to make sense and to communicate what we're thinking and what we're feeling to others as well as to ourselves. All right? So, excuse me. So what we have to do to understand communication that is intra, when we're talking to ourselves, about ourselves, all right, intra-personal communication, we also need to look at words because there's a lot of communication going on. So if you are to analyze these, you're going to see that they construct, because they are our building blocks, they're going to build a reality of Ms. K today. Just like yours have built a picture of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, who you are at this moment in time. Now, it doesn't mean it's forever. It doesn't mean it's what was in the past. That certainly doesn't mean what was in the future. It just means that in this moment of time, right now, we are able to look at how we are socially, okay, through words, interactions, and we'll get more to that in a moment, building what is real about us, okay, our reality. So, if we were to look at everybody's list, everyone would be different. That's an important point to remember. My reality is very different from your reality. Each one of you have very different realities from each other. And that's why we talk about this significantly when we're looking at prejudice, we're looking at cultural differences, we definitely are looking at stereotypes, all right? Because when you get past those things, we see that everybody is very much an individual and everybody is unique and special in our own way. So let's now dive deeper and see what else we can find. And we're going to do that by doing something that's a little evaluative, all right? So besides each one of these, you are going to put a symbol. That symbol is going to be a dot, which means neutral, doesn't bother you, it's not great, it's just like, it is what it is. Or a plus that says, oh yeah, this is good. I like this about me, or I like the way I'm feeling, or this is a good time in my life, or whatever. And then you're going to put a negative next to any of the items that you've listed that are like, this is just not good, right? So let me give you an example. I am Miss K. I am what I am. I'm done with COVID. Oh, that is such a negative. I am so done with this COVID. All right. I am a mom that always makes me feel pretty good, and I am happy today, right now, and all down the line. So you're going to do that for every one of your items. So everybody do that right now. Okay, so from the body language, it looks like you have finished this. Does anybody need more time? All right, good. Now, in the margin over here, or in this side of your paper, I want you to write a couple of elements. The first thing I want you to do is to identify two of your statements, all right, that you are satisfied with. You're satisfied. 1, 2. Write those down out of all the things on your list. All right, next, I want you to identify one thing on your list that you would like to change. And write that one down. Something that you would like to change about yourself. Okay. I wonder if that was easy or hard for you to pick that one. Now the next one, you're going to pick 3 things. And these are 3 things that bring you absolute joy. What just makes your sunrise, your face smile? Just what are 3 things there that just bring you joy? All right, those. Okay. Got them? Okay. So now let's take a look at what this means in relationship to here. So if you have your laptops or your cell phones, open them up and go in your textbook to 2.1 in your textbook, and you're going to see how this gets explained. While you're opening that, you can think how the words, the building blocks, and this kind of an activity is what is used in therapy all the time, in advisement, as well as counseling, or in problem solutions, or those kinds of events or interchanges of ideas and feelings. So we often will do this snapshot, this balance sheet so far, that you can do of who you are in this moment in time. All right. So on page 34 is a definition of self-concept. Right. So let's look at here and see how these words are used to reflect or build your current self-concept. So self-concept is defined as the overall idea of who a person thinks they are. So right now, this represents who you think you are, all right? This is utilized a lot by what is known as a person named, here is the original theory called the looking glass self. And way back in, I think it was the 1902, this was a theory put forward by a researcher named Cooley, a sociologist, all right? Sociologist, psychologist. All right, so that's a connection where he started to see how all of these things connect to a mirror. And we see ourselves based on how others see us. So it's a reflection. We see ourselves based on the reactions that people give to us so that we can know what's working and what's not working. All right? So if I say that I'm a mom and my kids love me and my kids think I'm a great mom and my kids still come to me for advice, my kids are still saying that, you know, they are a mom like they want me to, you know, like I always was kind of thing, then they are giving me a reflection, right? They are giving me feedback to say, okay, I must be a pretty good mom based on what they say and how they act toward me. So my self-concept of myself in this role is positive, all right? So the looking glass self was first really introduced way back in 1902 by Cooley, but it's powerful. And we're going to talk about a little bit more in this class as we progress. It's also useful, or it was extension, okay, an extension of this was made by a guy named Hargy. And Hargy is mentioned in your textbook a lot, all right? And Hargy came out in 2000, so this is 1902, and this is 2011. Hargy extended this concept and gave us even more insights into what it means, all right? So when we look at the looking glass self and we look at these elements here, we're going to be looking at them in relationship to how others see us, how we compare ourselves to others, what our culture has taught us about what we could be or should be, as well as our own evaluations of what we see as our strengths or weaknesses. And all those play into how we look at ourselves. We see ourselves portrayed by looking in the mirror at others. Others are a mirror reflection of when they behave to us of what we are. All right. So that's the looking glass self. We also, as you can imagine, you know, maybe you wrote down that you're feeling really poor right now, and you saw that as a negative. So what determines you being poor? Monetary, or poor in friends, or poor in just things, or what have you. So a lot of it is relative. And that's why we have to dig deep in to find out what's the feelings and the ideas behind the words. Okay? Nothing is on its surface. Okay. Need to check my time. All right, good. All right. So that's what we mean by self-concept. If you scroll down your textbook to page 36, you're going to come up to a definition of self-esteem, all right? And self-esteem is defined here as the judgments and evaluations we make about our self-concept, all right? So your self-esteem is very specifically an evaluation of ourself. So when you did this and anything else, all right, that's evaluative. That was judgmental. That was quantifying or qualifying some attribute about yourself. And you may say, well, that's just not nice, or that's just not fair. You're kind of right, all right? But we do it, and we do it all the time. And when we know we're doing it, and we could be conscious that we're doing it, so that we either counter that negativity, or we say, I need to change something, all right? So it's not bad to have an element of our self-concept that we're not happy with if we work to change it, all right? And that comes to our next item in a moment. But the whole idea is that we're constantly analyzing and critiquing ourselves, because most of us really do want to be better people. You know, the expression, I want to become a better version of myself, because you're constantly evolving, you're constantly improving, you're constantly growing, you're constantly changing. So all those things are good. That's what makes us humans, and that makes us develop and grow, all right? So self-esteem is an important characteristic to be aware of. If we stood back and looked at everything that was on here, and if you had a difficult time narrowing in on only one item to change, because you had a whole bunch of other items that were also negatives about you, then that's when a person is described as having low self-esteem. When the negativity, the perception, all right, the self-concept is so poor, is so negative, that it overpowers anything that could be a light or something that's good about you. All right. In fact, when people have low self-esteem, you know, these negatives outweigh any of the positives, that when somebody says a positive to them, they will discount it. They'll say, oh, you're my mom, you have to say something nice. Or, oh, you're just a teacher, you just want me to get a good grade. Okay. So it's interesting how we play tricks in our heads with the words that we use to sometimes maintain a self-concept, when actually what we need to do is to change that self-concept. Now, that leads us to page 37. And on page 37, it has what's known as self-efficacy. And don't let that word efficacy throw you, all right? It used to always throw me. It really means efficiency, all right? Effectiveness. I think of it as your abilities, all right? So if we are to step back and we are again to look at what items you have here, and if you focus on change and you focus on the positive things about you, right? Well, maybe of the neutral, but the positives, that I can say, I can use that positive momentum to change something about myself that needs to be changed, right? I have the ability. I have the ability. I have the ability. That's a critically important element in communication studies. We all have the ability to change. Every single one of us. It's pretty exciting. Think about it. right? So that's what we mean about those elements. Now, I'm going to then pull this all together by connecting it to the social comparison theory. Everything I've talked about here, you can, and you do, compare yourself to somebody else. That started off when you were a tiny, tiny little toddler. If you had siblings, oftentimes a parent might even say something like, why can't you be more like your brother? Or you know what? You are just like your Uncle Joe. So from the beginning of time, pretty much, I mean, from the point where you're birthed and people are saying, oh, this baby looks just like me, or no, this baby looks just like him. It's like, really? Babies are babies, right? So from the beginning of our birth into the world, social comparison is coming through. And by social, we mean comparing you to others. Others who may be like you and others who may be different from you. And if you remember earlier in the lecture, that comparison might be connected to socioeconomics, physical, psychological, cultural, other kinds of teachings, etc. It's a wonder any of us are healthy sometimes with all the pressures. Now, one of the things you're going to see in this class is that, although I don't talk about it a lot, I'm giving you a lot of literature and videos to watch about social media. Because when you step away from this again and look at the big picture, if you start to analyze how you are comparing yourself, are you comparing yourself against the people you see on your social media sites? That could be detrimental. In fact, I even recommend people to stop it because it can make you crazy or definitely hurt your self-esteem. Right? So keep those elements in mind. And having said all that, what questions do you have? Let's see. This is pretty heavy stuff. This is starting to like, oh, this is interesting. Some of you may want to even use any one of these terms to look at how you compare to the other as you can contemplate your project proposals and the people you want to study who are different from you. This is a starting point where you could say, maybe what you'd like to do, I mean, let's say maybe I see a lot of men in my room right now. Maybe what you would like to do is to try and understand as a male, what does it mean to be a mother? That's not something you could relate to. What is mother? Why does my mother behave the way she does? Now, because it has to be international, you got to think about possibly considering what's motherhood in a Muslim country as opposed to a Christian country. You may want to look at motherhood in Mexico and what are the expectations for a mother in that country, and how does that compare to what you understand living here in the United States, what motherhood is. Okay? So we're starting to take a look at some ideas for your project. All right. Any questions? Okay, you guys are free to go. Don't forget, you'll get a 0 if you don't have your quiz done, and you won't get full credit if you are late on the first posting of your discussion forum.